The job you have applied for is much more than just a job. It is a lifelong commitment to your nation. An army career promises a life full of adventure, comradeship, and dedication to this noble profession of arms. When you finally become an officer, you have to pledge your heart and soul to embrace a way of life which lives by the Chetwood credo. The safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the men you command comes next. Your own ease, comfort, and safety come last, always and every time. Selection to the post of an officer in the armed forces is a matter of great honor and earns you the respect of society. A candidate who receives a call-up to appear before the SSB therefore must start on the path by being responsible enough to read the call-up letter carefully and note the instructions contained in it.
Gentlemen, before we start, I would like to reiterate that you will be accepted as a candidate to face the SSB only once your antecedents and certificates are verified and you are allotted a chest number. In order to guard against prejudice or favor, this chest number is your identity during your entire stay at the SSB. Before we move any further, a word about the selection process and the 5 days that you will spend at the SSB. The 5-day testing at the SSB is the world's finest and proven officer selection system. In these 5 days, we assess your personality, which is a comprehensive whole of your mansa, vacha, karmana, translating into your thought, speech, and deed or action.
The personality of an individual is analyzed by a three-pronged approach, each one doing so independently. Each of the approaches are termed as techniques. They are the psychological, analyzing the thought, interview, analyzing the speech, and group testing, analyzing the deed or action. The summation yields inputs into the potential and helps us in identifying a trainable combat leader. Before we take a closer and more detailed look at what the 5-day testing involves, let us go through the activities on your reporting day. Your day of reporting starts with the reception. Based on the details given by you about your arrival, a reception is organized for all candidates at the railway station. You have to report to the Movement Control Office at the railway station at 1400 hours on the reporting date. Here, a representative of the selection center manning the reception will receive you and direct you to a bus that will take you to the selection center. Those arriving late or by road should proceed directly on their own and report to the selection center. On your arrival at the selection center, you will get sufficient time to settle down. The first organized event at the selection center is the opening address. The duty officer gives an introductory talk, explains matters of administrative details, the do's and don'ts at the selection center, and the routine in brief in the next 5 days. Listen carefully to what he tells you. After the opening address, documentation is the next event. you are required to produce your original certificates for verification and fill up certain forms like the TA form on the reporting day itself. You will also be allotted chest numbers for your Stage 1 testing.
Gentlemen, the morning of day 1 begins with the Officer Intelligence Rating Test. The test would start early, so ensure that you have a good night's sleep and wake up in time to be ready for the test. The tests themselves include verbal and non-verbal tests, which require simple and analytical reasoning.
The first test on day 1 is the Picture Perception and Description Test, also called the PPDT. During this test, a picture is flashed for 30 seconds. The candidates have to broadly note down certain basic parameters, that is, number of characters, age, sex, mood, and thereafter write a story relating to the situation in the picture. A story that could cover what, according to the candidate's perception, led to the situation in the picture, its present and future development. The time allotted for the story to be written down is 4 minutes. The next test is the group discussion, where the picture and your stories would need to be discussed in a group. For this phase, the batch is divided into different groups. The strength of a group is around 15 candidates. To start the group discussion, each candidate would be required to narrate his perception and individual written story. Subsequently, candidates would discuss amongst themselves about the story and achieve a common consensus about the characters and theme of the story. Once all candidates have undergone this stage, the results for Stage 1 testing are declared. Successful candidates are retained for Stage 2 testing, and the balance are asked to leave after a short brief on general shortcomings. The candidates are provided with lunch and transport to go to the railway station. You will also be paid the entitled travelling allowance for AC 3-tier class. This travelling allowance is paid for the first time on production of tickets.
At the end of day 1, you can expect to find 30 to 80 candidates in the batch retained for further detailed testing. They will be divided into groups of 8 to 10 candidates. Each group will be allotted different chest numbers. It is important to remember that you are not competing with other candidates. All of you will be assessed against a common standard of suitability, and it is possible that every one of the group is selected or rejected. You are also required to fill a personal information questionnaire with correct and exact details about your life. In case of a large batch, some of you may find yourself facing the interviewing officer in the evening. More about the interview a little later.
Dear candidates, the second day sees the onset of testing in earnest and begins with psychological assessment. The candidates are taken through a series of situations projected as words, pictures, and narrated situations. The reaction timings are stringent, gleaning at natural and subconscious behavioral pattern of the individual. Day 2 is also therefore called the psych day. As the psych test takes some time and you are required to be fresh and natural, we start testing early in the morning. Before the tests are administered, you will be briefed in detail by the duty psychologist about various psychology tests you have to undergo. Before you take the actual test, you will be familiarized with an example test of each type. These are administered to assess the psychological profile acceptable within the same peer group. The first test among the battery of psych tests is the thematic perception test, that is the TAT. During this test, 12 pictures including one blank are shown for 30 seconds each, one after the other. Candidates are asked to write a story around the picture shown, covering issues like what led to the situation, what is going on, and what would be the outcome of the situation perceived in the picture. The picture is selected in a manner to allow your creative minds to evolve a number of stories. No story is correct or wrong. What matters is that it must be your story triggered in your mind by the stimulus of the picture. Remember that the picture is shown for only 30 seconds and then you are asked to write about it in 4 minutes. In the blank slide, you have to imagine a picture of your own choice and write a story around that. Since the timings are stringent, you're advised to write the story that occurs to you first on seeing the picture. That way, your response will be natural and you would be able to write the entire story in the limited time available to you. The next psych test is the word association test, that is WAT. In this test, a total of 60 words are shown to the candidates. Each word is flashed on a screen for 15 seconds. The candidate is required to write down the first thought or idea that comes to his mind on seeing the word in the space provided during the 15 seconds he has before the next word is flashed. The third psych test is the situation reaction test, that is SRT. This test consists of 60 routine life situations regarding day-to-day activities. The situations are printed in a booklet and the candidate is asked to write his reactions by completing the sentences as to how he would feel, think and act in these situations. 30 minutes are given to candidates to write down their reactions to all the 60 situations in the booklet. The last in the battery of psych tests is self-description. Each candidate is given 15 minutes and is asked to write 5 separate paragraphs on each context covering his self-description. These contexts are the opinion of his parents or guardians, his friends, his teachers or superiors, his self-opinion, and the qualities a candidate would like to develop or inculcate. Candidates, it would be appropriate to adhere to some common do's and don'ts during all the psych tests I've just briefed you about. These are:
Gentlemen, after all the psych tests are administered and you have had a short break for refreshing yourself, some of you may have to appear before the interviewing officer for your interview. The interviews will continue into the afternoon and evenings of day 2, day 3 and day 4. You will be interviewed only once and will be informed well in advance about the time and place.
The atmosphere throughout the interview is relaxed and informal. The questions are generally based on your everyday experiences and relating to your work, education, family, and spare time activities, hobbies, and interests. Each candidate is interviewed for a duration ranging from 45 minutes to an hour. The interviewing officer will discuss by way of questions and answers the opportunities you had in life and the utilization which you have made of them. The interviewing officer is fairly senior and experienced in the armed forces. While he interacts with you, he assesses whether you have the essential qualities to be trained to become an officer in the armed forces, what you have done till date with regard to your academics, your achievements in extracurricular activities, your interest in life, your interaction with your parents, friends, and society at large, your general awareness, your physical and mental fortitude form important facets to assist him in his assessment. No one is perfect, and the interviewing officer understands and gives you more than adequate benefit for shortcomings or mistakes which you may have committed. Thus, do not try and hide anything. The tendency of lying or making false pretenses is easily discernible and is viewed negatively.
Some basics which a candidate must follow during the interview are listed. Gentlemen, unless slated for your interviews, which shall be informed to you, all afternoons are free. You can use this opportunity to visit places of interest, shop, and indulge in recreating activities, or simply relax. Let us move on to day 3 and the group testing.
Good morning, gentlemen. You're welcome to the day 3 of the GTO 1 day. As you know, on the third day, it is a blitzkrieg of action at the group testing grounds. Against time and some physical stress, the behavior pattern is inferred by the actions of the candidates in a group. In the morning, you will meet your group testing officer. He will first brief you in journal on all outdoor tests in which you will participate as a group. Before your group tackles a particular task, he will brief you again in detail. Here, the primary concern is to see how you face up to the obstacles in the task allotted and your attitude towards other members of the group, both when working with them or while directing them. Group tests do not require specialized individual skills on your part. Logical thinking, coordinated team effort, work ability to receive and give suggestion is what is looked for. You will be provided with sketchboards, ladders, ropes, planks, poles and other such things as your tools to help you in the assigned task. You are given a few minutes to form a plan and thereafter execute the task within the given time frame. The battery of GTO tests consists of 9 testable tasks, which includes to start with group discussion, group planning exercise, progressive group task, group obstacle race, half group task, lecturate, individual obstacles, command task, and finally the final group task. The GTO tests generally span over 2 days. However, when the batch is large, the test may have to be covered in 1 day, leaving you free on the other day. Now, let us look at each of these tests more closely.
The first task of GTO battery of test begins with group discussion on a debatable topic, which is usually given on current events or social issues. In the first group discussion, your group is allowed to select one of the 2 topics offered. In the second group discussion, the topic is of the GTO's choice. Each discussion will last for approximately 20 to 30 minutes. Each candidate is expected to participate in the discussion. Remember that the discussion involves an exchange of ideas and thoughts. It is not a one-way traffic of words. The group planning exercise is the next GTO test. During this, a story on a model with a few problems is narrated. What you are required is to identify the problems and evolve a practical solution within the given time. You are expected to write down your own individual solutions on the paper provided. You should think logically, write and draw neatly. Also, examine alternative solutions and weed out the ones that are absolutely impractical. Thereafter, your group collective solution will be discussed by the group. You are expected to participate in involving a group plan acceptable to everybody. One of you may then be asked to explain the acceptable final group plan. The progressive group task is the next test. 4 obstacles are required to be collectively negotiated by your group along with a heavy load. Certain helping materials in the form of ropes, planks, etc. are provided. About 40 minutes are assigned for this task. Ground rules will be explained to you in detail before the start of the task. Make sure you and your group adhere to them strictly. Remember that all of you and the load need to negotiate the obstacles together to move on during this test. The next test is the group obstacle race. Unlike other tasks, here your entire group is required to compete with other groups of your batch over a set of 6 obstacles. Each group has to carry a rolled up tent, oblique a stuffed gunny bag in the shape of a snake from the start point to the finish point. Therefore, the task is commonly referred as a snake race. The rules of the race will be explained to you. The winner is the group that covers all the obstacles against the challenge posed by opponents. Not to forget to include time, obstacles and load within the framework of rules of the race. After the race, there is a short 20 minutes break for you to rest and recoup. After the break, you will participate in the half group task. This task is similar to the progressive group task, except for that it is conducted over one obstacle with smaller group. On completion of the half group task, the GTO will conduct the task called lecturate. Each member of your group will deliver a 3 minutes informal talk. A set of different topics will be offered separately to each candidate. You can choose one topic from this set. Approximately 3 minutes are given to you to prepare your talk and thereafter speak for 3 minutes in front of the group on the subject that you have chosen. That completes the set of GTO tasks on day 3. So, as mentioned earlier, some of you may have your interview scheduled during the afternoon or evening of day 3. So do confirm the same before you make your plans for the afternoon or the evening. Welcome to the day 4 of GTO 2 day. The balance of the GTO tests and remaining interviews are conducted on day 4. The GTO technique maintains its pace over the 4th day too, concentrating mostly at individual level and gleaning out the essential aspects of stamina, drive, determination and courage. The GTO test begins early in the morning with the individual obstacle course. In the individual obstacle course, there are 10 obstacles designed to test your individual ability in negotiating them. You are given 3 minutes to negotiate as many obstacles as possible on your own. If the course is completed within the time limit, you may repeat the obstacles of your choice. After all members of the group have completed their individual obstacle course, the GTO will give them a break and thereafter take the group to the next task called the command task. Now, in the next task called the command task, each member of your group will be put in command of the group in turn. The objective being the completion of a specified task as a commander. You will first be briefed by the group testing officer, who will brief you regarding the task, and thereafter you will then explain the task to the group and give instructions and also monitor the completion of the task personally. As the name suggests, the last GTO test is the final group task. Here, once again, the entire group gets together to complete an assigned task within the stipulated time frame. Before leaving the testing area, you will be debriefed by the GTO. He will also explain the procedure to be followed at the board conference on day 5. Some do's and don'ts during the GTO test are: the remaining interviews will be conducted on the day 4. So, wish you all the best, gentlemen, and do well.
The last and the 5th day is spent in the conference, the culmination of the process of selection. The day begins with a closing address. The closing address is generally given by the Deputy President of the Board before the Board conference. During the address, he will highlight the merits of the selection system, explain the qualities that we in the armed forces are looking for in your personality, and provide clarification to any doubts or questions that may arise in your mind. It is also an interactive forum for you to put forward any problems you faced or any suggestions you may have.
The board conference is the final event of the 5-day testing process. During the board conference, which is chaired by the president or deputy president, all the assessors, that is the GTOs, IOs and psychologists who assessed you will be in attendance. Each candidate is discussed in detail by the 3 assessors who examined his demonstrated performance over the specific technique independently to arrive at a consensus of manifest personality. An intricate process of debate, validation and counter-validation is undertaken at times to arrive at the final decision. The ultimate mantra being that the winner shall always be the organization, and all debates are settled in the best interest of the organization. Candidates will then be asked to appear individually before the board. You will be asked some questions. During the conference, your total assessment is read out by your respective assessors. On the basis of this assessment, a decision is taken and the board makes a recommendation.
After all the candidates have appeared before the board and the results have been compiled, the technical officer of the board will announce the results. Candidates who fail to make the cut are seen off at the railway station. All those who are recommended by the board stay on for the medical examination. The medical examination itself can take anywhere up to a week.
The armed forces today provide an attractive option to the women of India to embrace a profession that is both challenging and rewarding. Women are also assessed with the same 5-day program in keeping with the spirit of equality between genders. Some guidelines for women candidates are: so if you want to join the army as a commissioned officer, here are some important telephone and fax numbers for your information.
In the last few minutes, we have tried to make you all aware of the selection process that you will go through in the 5 days that you spend at the SSB. All the information that is required by you has been packed in just to make you more aware of what we expect out of you. Many of you will pass through these portals to become effective combat leaders in the defense forces. On behalf of the entire assessment community, we wish each one of you all the very best. Jai Hind.